What's going on, guys? It's Pete Nova from the Face Off Sports Network. I am back with my Week 7 defensive streamers to help you win your fantasy football matchups. We had another successful week last week. We are now on a streak of providing a defense that's 25% rostered that finishes inside the top 10 for fantasy football. Last week we had two. Houston Texans 17% roster going into the week. They finished fourth in fantasy points. Philadelphia Eagles, 18% roster going into the week. They finished seventh in fantasy points, and we're looking to keep the momentum going. I do want to be transparent. The goal here is to provide teams that are available in 80 to 75% of leagues, but some weeks we may give some teams that are a little bit more heavily owned, just because I don't want to press and just provide defenses to meet that 25% criteria, especially if I don't love them. I did find three this week. There are some defenses that I like a little bit more that are in that 30 to 40% roster range. So if you have questions, I'll gladly let you know if I prefer them over any of these plays. But let's just get right into it with my first defense this week. It's going to be the Colts. The Colts are 16% rostered across fantasy formats. We did have the Colts last week. They didn't end up having an amazing week against the Titans, but they didn't crush us either. I believe they were somewhere around like that 15 to 20 range, and I think they gave us about 6 to 8 points depending on league format last week. But Colts are taking on the Miami Dolphins. It's a home team, so we get that, and a low total of 43.5 points. This defense for the Colts was 10th in EPA last week versus the Titans. So a good showing, at least from an EPA standpoint. We didn't get all those turnovers that we were hoping for with an offense like the Titans, who do turn the football over a lot. But they played well against an offense that's not efficient, which is what we were expecting. This Dolphins offense is the worst in terms of EPA this year, and since Tua has been gone, they are the worst on the year in both of those stretches. So since the season started, and since Tua left as well, both of those they're bottom of the league. They're 32 in EPA from an offensive standpoint. And the Dolphins give up the sixth most points to fantasy defenses this year. So that's a good sign. And the biggest test here is going to be, can the Dolphins run the football? This Colts defense has been susceptible on the ground to the run. Tony Pollard just had, I believe, a little over 80 yards last week and was efficient in that matchup. And they did hold down Najee Harris the week before, and so they've shown us that they can tighten up there. But it's really going to be, can the Dolphins, with A-Chain, Mostert, still no Tua, but those two guys, and even mix in a little Jalen Wright, can they get it done on the ground? And I think if the Colts can neutralize them, which I think that's going to be the focus, I do think that we see a good outing by them. And keep in mind, when the Colts played the Steelers, who don't have a great passing attack, they were able to limit the rushing attack with Najee Harris and their running backs. And there wasn't a lot of points in that game for the Steelers. So I think that's probably what their game plan is going to be, is daring them to throw the football in this one. And so, we'll see how the chips fall, but the Colts are going to be my favorite defense to stream that's under 25% roster ownership this week. And just to show the EPA chart, because I wanted to flash that on the screen. When it comes to Dolphins EPA, you can see them down at the bottom left, and they just haven't been great. And I don't need to show you a chart to tell you that this Dolphins offense just isn't very good right now. I expect them to bounce back once Tua is back in the huddle. But my second defense is going to be the New York Giants. 3% rostered, another deep play here. That's going to be the theme today. But New York Giants, they are the home team, so we get that plus a low point total, 43.5. So both of these two teams, between the Colts and the Giants, are home, and they get a low point total. This Giants defense is pretty talented. Their front seven is very strong. Their back end can be susceptible to giving up big plays, but they're going up against the Eagles, a divisional game. Divisional games like this, don't always end up being high scoring. So we're banking on a low total in this one. Giants just held the Bengals offense to 17 points at home. And that's pretty impressive. I expect that to be a high scoring game, but they were able to give Joe Burrow and the Bengals trouble. And that's one of the more talented offenses in the NFL. The Eagles right now, they're 12th in pressure rate allowed to the quarterback position, and the Giants are 7th in terms of total pressures this year, 11th in pressure rate. Something's going on with this Eagles offense. They just still seem not. They're just not gelling. They're not running smooth. Maybe a Saquon Barkley redemption game here is what I'm a little bit worried about. But I do like the Giants if you're going for a deeper stream. Like I said, out of the 25% or less rostered, this was one of my favorite teams. There weren't a lot of great matchups this week, but the Giants are one of my favorite if we're looking at teams less than 25% rostered. I don't know if we're going to hit that, inside the top 10 this week. Like I said, this is probably one of the tougher weeks that I have charted for this segment. But we're looking at all our keys here: home teams, low point totals. We got that in those first two. So hopefully those rules stay true, and one of these teams can squeak into that top 10. The last team I'm going to give here is the Washington Commanders taking on the Carolina Panthers. This defense is 3% owned. We do get the home team here with the Washington Commanders. It is a high point total, but it is inflated, I believe, because, the Commanders are one of the best offenses in the NFL when it comes to scoring. Commanders defense, they did just lose one of their stars, Allen, on the front in the front seven, and so that could be a hit to this run defense. But the Commanders in EPA over the last 4 weeks for defense are 13th, so they have tightened up and played better. And Carolina is the 8th worst in offensive EPA since Andy Dalton took over. Now, fantasy wise, Deontay Johnson, Leggett, Chuba Hubbard, they have been really good, but EPA wise, they haven't been very efficient. That could be something to monitor this week. Maybe that Dalton magic is wearing off a little bit. I do expect Washington to control the football. I think Carolina will be playing from behind in this game, and so that bodes well for the Commanders defense, who can kind of pin their ears back and probably try to get after the quarterback. Carolina is 6th worst in time of possession. So, they don't have the ball for very long. They don't sustain drives very well. And then you have Washington, who does sustain drives very well and can control the football. So I do think this is going to be a lopsided game when it comes to time of possession. And I do expect this Commanders defense to have a good chance to bounce back after this Ravens loss from last week. But that's going to do it for me, guys. If you have any questions, please drop it into the bottom of the YouTube video. I'm sure there are defenses that I would prefer over these three, but they're probably more than 25% rostered. So drop them in. I'd gladly give you my advice on if I would start any of those defenses over the three that I provided today. But that's going to do it for me, guys. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.